years ago, I lived in Japan.
Hey there, shellheads. It's Heidi from Channeling Spirits. In 1984, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird released their first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, kicking off a global phenomena. With the final issue of The Last Ronin out, we now know the end of the radical reptiles. But how long were they actually teenagers?
It is time to seek our answers.
To plot out the timeline, we'll be using Eastman and Laird's first run, specifically only comics they had a hand in, including The Last Ronin and other turtle projects they were involved in. So let's start with the first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It begins with the titular tortoises looking to avenge Splinter's master, Hamato Yoshi. Yoshi was murdered years ago by Oroku Saki, who would become known as
The Shred Dude!
I told you. Call me the Shredder.
After a rooftop battle, Shredder falls to his death. But when did his initial defeat take place? In Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 21, Leonardo faces a resurrected Shredder and says he saw him die 3 years ago. Before facing Saki a second time, a newspaper is dated December 25th, 1988, which means their first fight happened in 1985. We also get further evidence it happened in 85 from the license plate seen in issue 3. According to the official Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG, Oroku Saki was 34 when he faced the Turtles, meaning he was born in 1951.
I know that, you idiots.
Based on the same RPG, we also know April is 27 when they meet her in issue 2, meaning she was born in 1958. Master Splinter explains his tale begins some 20 years ago, but more specifically, 27 years ago. While in Japan, Splinter was the pet rat of Hamato Yoshi, a member of the Foot Clan. Splinter mimicked Yoshi's movements and learned ninjutsu.
Mimicking his movements from my cage and learning the mysterious art of ninjutsu.
Yoshi competed fiercely with Oroku Nagi, Shredder's brother, for the affection of a woman named Tang Shen.
Shin's love was only for my master.
One fateful night, Nagi went to Tang Shen's home and demanded that she love him. Shen refused, saying that she only wanted Yoshi. Yoshi arrived to find Nagi beating his love. In a blind rage, Yoshi murdered him. The couple fled to New York while Nagi's 7-year-old brother, Oroku Saki, vowed revenge in 1958.
And then there's Casey Jones, a 9-year-old trapped in a man's body.
The RPG states Casey Jones was 22 when he met Raphael in Raphael number 1, meaning he was born in 1963.
Oh, and that's supposed to be better?
The Utroms, extraterrestrial inventors of the mutagen that transformed the turtles, explained that over 20 years ago, about 100 of them arrived on Earth as part of an expedition.
Why should I believe a talking brain?
However, when their ship malfunctioned, only a third of them survived the crash. They were stranded and forced to use bipedal exoskeletons as camouflage.
You may feel some disorientation when you revive in your new body.
The Utroms took up residence in New York and formed the Technocosmic Research Institute, or T.C.R.I. The business acted as a front to build an intergalactic communicator in hopes of returning home. By 1969, Oroku Saki had been training for 11 years and was 18 years old. He had become the most cunning assassin of the Foot Clan and was chosen to establish the New York branch.
Back in Japan, under Oroku Saki's evil leadership, the Foot Clan turned into an army of crime.
Within a year, he had built the New York Foot into a force to be reckoned with. By 1970, Saki donned his famous suit of armor and began calling himself
The Shredder.
All 4 turtles are 15 years old, according to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG, so it's possible they were actually brothers from the same clutch.
I can see the family resemblance.
Splinter explains nearly 15 years ago, Saki murdered Tang Shen while Hamato Yoshi was away. When Yoshi returned, Oroku Saki finally avenged his brother. Splinter's cage was smashed and he fled to the streets of New York. Meanwhile, the Utroms were moving the last salvages of their ship into the city by truck. When a blind man walked in the middle of the road, a young Matt Murdock pushed him out of the path of the T.C.R.I. truck. That's right, Matt Murdock. Eastman and Laird modeled their blind man and truck after Daredevil #1. The radioactive cylinder that struck Matt bounced and shattered the glass bowl holding 4 infant turtles. Oh, the little baby. The T.C.R.I. canister and reptiles fell into an open manhole.
That's the canister that had the ooze.
Splinter followed the turtles, washing off the ooze that covered them. In a year, they reached their current size and began to speak.
Pizza! Pizza!
Splinter named them using a battered book on Renaissance art.
I'm Leonardo.
I'm Michelangelo.
Donatello.
I'm Raphael.
Yeah, all the good ones and to know.
In 1972, Splinter began training them in ninjutsu for 13 years until they avenged his master, Hamato Yoshi. Not long after their victory over the Shredder, the Turtles watched Baxter Stockman and his assistant, April, demonstrate the Mousers.
Now, watch how my Mouser follows its nose to the rat.
Issue 2 mentions Baxter has been committing robberies for several weeks. After stopping Stockman and his Mousers, the brothers return home to find Splinter missing from the lair. Issue 4 begins with their master missing for a week, and they discover the T.C.R.I. building. After tussling with the Utroms, the Turtles are transported to Dehunib. By issue 6, it notes that they have been gone for 2 days. A news reporter states another day has passed by issue 7. We also know Baxter released his Mousers almost a month before, which makes sense considering that there were several weeks of robberies. Michelangelo's one-shot features him trying to stop robbers during Christmas in December of 1985. Then, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #8, Rennet time travels to New York in 1986. In Leonardo #1, Donnie mentions that this is only their second real Christmas to April, meaning it's still 1986. While out exercising on Christmas Eve, Leo is badly beaten by the Foot. The attack continues in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #10, where the Foot burned down April's antique shop, second time around, and forced them to flee to Northampton, Massachusetts.
Hey, didn't they use this place in the Grapes of Wrath?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #11 begins with a journal entry dated January 15th, 1987. The issue details the Turtles' recovery on the farm with April and Casey Jones. The last entry is dated May 1st. When they are finally ready to return to New York,
It's time to go back.
we see a newspaper dated Monday, December 19th, 1988. Raph screams, "It's been a year," that they've been stuck at the farm, though it's actually been more like 2 years at this point. After challenging Leonardo, he takes off on his own. On December 25th, the Turtles storm Shredder's Hudson Block hideout. Despite his resurrection by worms, Oroku Saki is finally defeated.
That's the end of the Shredder.
City at War is a 13-part story arc, which concluded Eastman and Laird's original run, but the timeline is messy.
Well, that's kind of a defeatist attitude, don't you think?
We are introduced to Karai, the leader of the Japanese Foot Clan, who claims Oroku Saki was killed a year ago. Since his defeat, there has been a power vacuum for those vying for control.
When you, Turtle Men, destroyed the Shredder, you threw the city into chaos.
However, we get several cultural hints that it is later than 1989. In Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 50, the TV mentions Boris Yeltsin, who took power in 91, as well as the Siege of Sarajevo, which started in 92. The first specific date we are given is in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 52 on an electric bill dated September 31st, 1992. A man manipulates the bill to be past due as of February 31st, and the Con Ed worker notes the account is 7 months overdue, meaning it is indeed September 1992. At 22 years old, the Turtles are no longer teenagers. April has flown to Los Angeles to be with her sister Robin after a failed fling with Casey.
Hey, I was just trying to break it to you easy.
Oh, well, you failed miserably.
Hey, Broadzilla, you wouldn't even be standing here if it weren't for me, okay?
Oh, and what do you want? Do you want to thank you?
In a desperate attempt to get her back, Casey is driving cross country and meets Gabrielle, a waitress who is 4 months pregnant. By Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 54, Robin asks April if she wants to celebrate Christmas early. Given the snow and that the news mentions a ceasefire on Christmas Day, it has to be December 1992. Unlike his sons, Splinter remains in Northampton but ends up trapped when he falls into an abandoned factory. Splinter begins hallucinating of the Rat King, who tells him he has been trapped there for 2 months in issue 58. That would make it February 1993. In that time, Casey proposed to Gabrielle, April and Robin's father died, and Leonardo was captured by Karai. She proposes an alliance with the Turtles to stop the Foot Elite in exchange for peace. Gabrielle goes into labor prematurely and loses her life giving birth to her daughter, Shadow. In Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 59, the calendar reads May 1993. By this time, Splinter has healed and escapes. Casey returns to his mom in New York, while April coincidentally is trying to rent an apartment from her. The last of the Foot Elite are defeated, and Karai enacts a tumultuous truce. The series ends with April and Casey picking up the last of their things from the farm, and most of the Turtles agreeing to return with them to the city. Donnie and Splinter remain in Northampton to recuperate. Though it hasn't been explicitly stated as a continuation of the original run, the Last Ronin does work as a companion.
Bingo! You get the feeling all this is starting to lead somewhere?
The biggest problem is the Turtles' headbands. In the Mirage run, they had red bandanas, while in the 1987 cartoon and most future iterations would have them each wear their own color. So when did The Last Ronin take place? When Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman originally plotted it, they were going to set it 30 years later, in the then distant future of 2017. Kevin's updated notes moved it to 2049, but this doesn't work with the rest of the timeline because April would be 91 with a 16-year-old daughter. Since the comics never give a specific year, we'll try and find dates that work a bit better. The first issue begins with only one of the Turtles still alive as the eponymous Last Ronin.
Hang on! One turtle'd have a better chance than 3.
Well, have fun! Drop us a line if anything interesting happens.
You could have tried to talk me out of it, you know.
In this apocalyptic future, Oroku Hiroto, Saki's grandson, rules New York with an iron fist. In a retcon, Karai is actually Shredder's daughter, which was first seen in the 2003 animated series.
He was more than just my master. He became my father.
And has become common in the mythology.
Your father? Shredder is your father? You're Shredder's daughter?
In the Mirage comics, Karai had a daughter, and she apparently also had a son. The earliest flashback we get is in the Last Ronin number 2. Second time around has been rebuilt since we last saw it in City at War. Casey has finally proposed to April, while Donatello and Splinter are back in the city. After Splinter is attacked, Casey Jones asks about the truce, and Leah replies he is surprised it lasted as long as it did. Since there isn't any indication on how long that might have been, we're going to say it was 2 years, placing this in 1995. Raph retaliates and takes the fight to Karai.
I mean, come on. How do you guys expect to beat me? Good answer.
Raphael's brash attack ultimately ends with him drowning underwater. What prompted the strike on Splinter is unclear, but we know that Oroku Hiroto is 6 years old at this point. By the Last Ronin number 3, he is 16 and states it has been 10 years since they battled the mutants, making it 2005. He offers Clan Hamato a parlay in Japan.
It's gotta be a trap. I hate it when he says that.
If they were gonna spring a trap, they'd probably do it right about...
Despite this, the Foot attack, killing Leonardo and Casey Jones in a fiery explosion.
You coming? I'll cover you!
Mikey miraculously survived and stowed aboard a plane in hopes of meeting with Donnie and Splinter. He arrives too late and finds his brother and master have fallen from a volley of arrows. Believing all his family and friends are dead, Michelangelo retreats to the mountains.
Now, at exactly what point did we lose control here?
But April also survived the blast, despite losing an arm and a leg. She wakes up a week later to find that she is pregnant. 16 years later, her daughter, Casey Marie, discovers Michelangelo about to commit seppuku after failing to avenge his brothers.
Michelangelo, don't lose your patience.
This would make April 47 when she gave birth to Casey Marie. She would have definitely been a high-risk pregnancy, but it makes more sense than her having a baby at 75. This also sets the bulk of the events of The Last Ronin in 2021, which is when several issues were released. Michelangelo faces off against Hiroto, who unveils himself as the new Shredder, now in nano armor. After falling from Hiroto Tower, the feud between Hamato and Oroku finally ends as Shredder and Michelangelo both deal fatal blows. At 51 years old, far from being a teenager, the last Ninja Turtle passes away.
If anything's happened to that little twerp, I'll... Oh no!
In their nearly 40-year history, the Turtles have been eternal adolescents, but in the original comics, they eventually outgrow that title. Do you agree with our history, or would you change their timeline? If you like this video and think we deserve it,
well, dudes, I'd say that's pretty much a wrap.
Please subscribe. Special shout out to our Patreon supporters who make these videos possible. Thank you guys. As always, keep coming back for more spooktacular videos. I'm Heidi from Channeling Spirits, and thanks for watching.
All right! Now we can relax, catch some boob tube, and forget about all that weirdness we just went through.